When I was about 9 or 10, my dad got a high-paying job that required us to move from a small town in Pennsylvania to Brookmont, Maryland. I say required, but honestly, my parents were thrilled. In just a month, we went from living in a tiny, rundown house in a low-income neighborhood to a massive property in one of Maryland's most upscale suburbs. At that age, I was pretty antisocial. I didn't have many friends, so leaving my old home didn't bother me much. My parents later told me they saw this as a fresh start for me, but at the time, I didn't think much of it. The new house was amazing, huge, modern, and surrounded by trees. But the best part was the backyard. It had tall, twisting hedges, perfect for hide and seek. But what really stood out was the treehouse. Calling it a treehouse almost feels wrong. It was more like a tree castle. It wasn't just some planks nailed to a tree. This thing had 3 levels, actual staircases, and spanned 6 or 7 trees. It was clear that a professional had built it. My 2 older brothers, Sean and Harold, and I spent every day playing there at first. But as they got older, they lost interest, leaving me alone to enjoy it. One afternoon, when I climbed up into the treehouse, I found a folded piece of paper sitting in the corner. The note read, "Hello, I'm the Marshmallow Man. It's nice to meet you. What's your name?" I was thrilled. I assumed one of my brothers was playing a game with me, so I played along. There was a small stack of paper inside the treehouse that hadn't been there before, so I grabbed one and wrote back with my name. I placed it exactly where I had found the first note and left, excited for the next day. For the next few afternoons, I rushed to the treehouse after school, finding a new note each time. At first, they were simple, friendly messages that sounded like something my brothers would write. But then, the questions got a little weird. What's your favorite time of day to play outside? What do you usually eat for breakfast? The one that still makes me shudder was, which window in the house is your bedroom? Even then, I didn't think too much of it. I assumed it was still a game. But the next note changed everything. What do your pajamas smell like? That was it. I ran inside, furious, and confronted my brothers. They both started laughing, saying they had no idea what I was talking about. But I knew one of them had to be lying. I didn't tell my parents. I wanted to catch them myself. That night, as I lay in bed, I heard tapping at my window. I froze. My heart pounded in my chest. I was already scared of the dark. And now this? I stayed completely still, too terrified to move. The tapping continued for what felt like hours. Eventually, I forced myself to sleep. The next morning, when I pulled back the curtains, I almost screamed. Dozens of marshmallows were taped to my window. That was it. My brothers had taken things too far. That night, I was ready. When the tapping started again, I leaped out of bed and yanked the curtains open. It wasn't my brothers. Standing on the other side of the glass was an old man. His skin was pale and wrinkled, his teeth rotting and yellow. His patchy hair stuck out in strange directions. But what terrified me the most were his eyes, dark, hollow, and locked onto mine. Then he smiled. I screamed so loud that my parents came running. But by the time they got to my room, the man was gone. The police were called. They searched our yard, the treehouse, and the entire neighborhood. Nothing. No footprints, no clues, nothing. Our neighbors were horrified when they heard what had happened, but no one had seen anything unusual. I told the police about the notes. They took them as evidence, but I doubt they did much with them. The man was never found. After that night, my parents forbade me from going near the treehouse again. Not that I wanted to. Years later, I moved out, but my parents still live in that house. Every time I visit, I catch myself staring at that old treehouse, wondering, who was the Marshmallow Man? And more importantly, was he ever really gone?